Today, on Energy Contact. Ever try to concentrate when something hurts? Well, it's impossible. You ever try to concentrate when you're really feeling good and having fun? Well, that's impossible too. What the mind, spirit, emotion, intellect do are all a function of how the body feels. So don't get hazy, focus, because we're about to clear all of that up. It's coming up right now on Energy Contact. Hello and welcome to Energy Contact. My name is Joseph Willenbrink. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you to the production staff here in the studio for helping me get my message out to you. Energy Contact is a series I'm presenting to you as a public service. It's about attaining perfect health, growth, self-improvement, happiness, and realizing your full potential. It's designed to present you a new way of seeing yourself and a new way of seeing the world around you. We're talking about things that have to do with making an energetic contact with yourself internally and with your environment. There's no difference between the body, the mind, the spirit, the emotion, the intellect, the ego. There's no difference between mass and energy. There's just something about us that loves to separate these things out, parse them out, pull them apart, take one little piece, look at it under a microscope, and think from that we understand the big picture. But in fact, all that health, growth, self-improvement, happiness, all that stuff takes place when we do just the opposite. When we smush these things together. When we make an energetic contact between the physical world and the unseen one. We're presenting on these programs a brand new paradigm that's thousands of years old. We're presenting extraordinary topics for ordinary people. And let's move right ahead with that. Let's bring up a slide. Everyone please know that I am not a doctor. This show is not a medical advice show. This show is not a medical anything show. I might call myself an energy healer, a chakra healer, things like that. If you came to me, you might call me some of those things too. But state, federal, and local governments call me no such things whatsoever. It's important to know that. There's a lot of important information on your screen right now. Please read it with your full attention if you will. And when you've got it down, now would be a great time to locate a pencil and paper. Now here's why you want to do that. At the end of this program, we're going to run some credits. And when those credits run, there's going to be contact information for me. Now, I'm sort of hoping that something I tell you today might inspire you to want to contact me. And I'll be glad to hear from you too. But in order to contact me, you're going to need that contact information. In order to get it, you're going to need a pencil. There'll be plenty of time at the end of the show to jot that down if you have a pencil and paper ready. All right. Everybody got that? Today, this is show number 52. If you're tuning in for the first time today, well, thanks and welcome. I think you'll enjoy the show. These shows are sequential. They build. So if it's your first time, there's some ramp up time, some getting up to speed things that you will have missed out on. However, I'm doing my very best to make each show have a lot of value on a standalone basis. And I believe today's show does. I think you'll get a lot out of it. If it is one of your first times, however, and if what you see piques your interest, well then I'll invite and encourage you to look for earlier shows. They'll be re-airing at later times, either re-airing right here on this channel or perhaps at different days, in different times, in different areas. And if you look for them, I'll appreciate it. All right, and now we've reached the time of the show where I get to introduce my co-host to you. Let's get Slim on camera here. This is my buddy Slim, and Slim is here for a reason. Since we're investigating what energy contacts in the physical self, we have to understand a few things, don't we? We have to understand something about energy, and believe me, we're going to learn all about it. But all of that energy out there somewhere in some disconnected pie-in-the-sky place does us no good whatsoever. It does us no good until we bring it into contact with something SLIM is here to help us understand what that thing is that the energy must contact for us to have all that health and growth and self-improvement we're talking about. Remember, a body without energy is just a corpse. And energy without a body, well, it isn't human. All right. Previously on Energy Contact, we have been discussing what we're made of. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, every way. When we were kids, we were taught that the body was an individual hunk of mass of some sort. Sure, we were separate from one another. That goes without saying. But we were also, our body, separate from our mind, separate from our spirit, separate from our emotions. On Energy Contact, we've experienced ourselves in a much different and in a much more accurate way. The way Einstein saw us. We've seen ourselves as forces, wavelengths and frequencies, internal ones acted on by external ones. And we've seen that in that context, pain and pleasure are two sides of the same coin, as are happiness and sadness, cold and warm, health or wealth and poverty, and so on. You get the idea. They all travel through the exact same channels. You can't sign up for one without enrolling into the other one. We've spoken on Energy Contact about ragadveshas. We introduced the term ragadveshas, which basically translates from Sanskrit as attractions and repulsions. The more we attract anything to us, the more we attract its own opposite. And on it goes forever, until something happens to intervene, until something happens to change that. Well, whatever it is that makes us look the way we look, act the way we act, think the way we think, and feel the way we feel, is a function of these unseen energy flows. The flows, the internal forces and the external forces themselves, and the other energies that flow through them. And anything that flows has a current, like a river does, like electricity does. And anything with a current can carry us away, it can shock us, it can overwhelm us, it can even kill us. But also, it can be wielded, it can be managed, controlled, and mastered, used as a tool to do something good for us. All right, so while all these forces we've looked at are invisible, they all manifest into something physical. They all manifest in the physical us. They create us, our bodies. We've spoken on Energy Contact a whole lot since the very first shows about this invisible body intellect, about these same things that we've always thought are brain things that give us thought, reason, intellect, ego, intelligence, reason, logic, all of those things. We think of them as brain things, but they in fact permeate every cell of our body. Our body drips with them like a soggy sponge. We build everything into this body intellect. All of the promotions to flow and resistances, all of the attractions and the repulsions, and then that body intellect turns right around and builds us. And we've spoken about another mysterious force, another invisible energy, something those old Indian mystics called Kundalini energy. We're getting ready to understand a whole lot more about that. Now, if you were here last show, you'll recall that I just dumped out a bunch of new data on you. I'm going to dump out a little more today. And I promised that we'd start to sort these things out. Well, that's where we're beginning right now. We're beginning that as we begin a new phase of Energy Contact. We're starting the part of the series where we start to talk about auras and chakras and Kundalini energy, more arcane, more esoteric things like that. I began last show by telling you the meaning and the purpose of life. So sorry if you missed that. You'll have to live without purpose for another week or so, but we'll come back to it. Then we looked and saw why yogis who preach the meaninglessness of the physical body spend so much time exercising. It has to do with health, of course it does, but more it has to do with the flow of energy up the spine and with invisible pipelines in the body. We saw that it is very difficult to be a spiritual person until and unless we promote the flow of unseen invisible energies up physical pipelines, up our physical structure. Way back on Energy Contact, it became clear to us that we couldn't understand the body without understanding energy. Now we're coming to the point where we're starting to realize that we can't understand energy without understanding the body. Why? Well, because there's no difference. They're exactly the same. Today, we are continuing our look at those invisible yet very real channels or pipelines through which energy flows. We've seen the anatomy of it, the mass of it, and today we're going to look at a lot more anatomy. But if there's no difference between mass and energy, if there's no difference between the visible and the invisible, then there must be other pipes and channels, things that we cannot see with our physical eyes, but are nonetheless every bit as real, if not more so. The same pipelines that process all the other things that we can't see, but we know they're there. Love and goodness and kindness, anger and fear and anxiety. What else? Well, maybe prana, chi, kundalini energy, all these other terms that you hear about, but you have trouble making concrete. We're going to understand a lot about them. And that's what our show is about then today. It's understanding those invisible pipelines that conduct energy flows and create everything from form to spirit, and that are created by everything from form to spirit. Soon, we're going to start looking in more detail about what flows through all these pipelines. But first, we have to understand the pipelines themselves. Then we'll get to like the crimps and the nodes and the stops and the things that promote flow and the things that block flow. Once we understand the pipeline, once we understand that physical energetic interface. So that's what we want to do. Understand that place where energy contacts the physical self. All right, plenty to do, and we're going fast and furious today. A lot of stuff to cover. You'll work hard to stay with me today. But now, we've got a few moments to stop, take a deep breath, and relax. Close your eyes if you're in a place that you can do that, because we have reached the part of our show where we get to take our virtual field trip. We get to take our journey in our mind's eye. Today, let's visualize that you and I are walking down a crowded sidewalk. Maybe like the sidewalk in my favorite place in the world, Venice Beach. And there we are, we're just walking, hanging out, having a good time. And an old friend runs into you. And this old friend starts to talk, say hello for a little while, friendly conversation. But then he says, you know what? Are you feeling okay? You look a little pale, a little gaunt. Is everything all right? And in a few minutes, the conversation ends and we're walking our way. And as we walk along, you start asking me, Joseph, what do you think? Do I look all right to you? Maybe I am coming down with something. Do you have an aspirin? You know, on second thought, let's just go home. Let's just get back because I think maybe I need to go home and lay down. But then, as we begin that journey back, you bump into another old friend. And this old friend walks up to you and says, wow, you are looking great. What's happened? Did you lose some weight? Did you change your hair? New clothes? You've been working out? You've got a glow about you, a shine about you. A couple minutes later, that conversation ends and you've forgotten about that first one a little bit. Now as we go our way, you feel a little lighter, maybe even a little cocky. And you say to me, man, I do look good, don't I? I feel good too. All right, hold that thought. We're in the process of relating structure to energy channels and pipelines, to attractions and repulsions, to the real and the unreal. Last show, I told you that if you resist energy flows through your physical channels, it will be very hard for you to be a spiritual person. Well, that's kind of profound, isn't it? It's kind of heavy and it's counterintuitive to us. We've always, all of our life, been so content to see physical things over here and mental things over there, emotional things over yonder, spiritual things way off there. It was so convenient for us. And certainly, you is different than me, is different than him, is different than her. We've been content to see our body as this blob, just this separate blob, separate from everything else. But we're learning the unity, the sameness of it all. To complicate it even more, each and every positive flow through us goes through the same pipeline as a negative flow. Attracting to one automatically just sticks us to the other, like Velcro. Those yogis we talk about were very familiar with all these attractions and repulsions. They were familiar with them thousands of years ago. They called them raga dveshas, and they didn't like them. You know why? Well, they saw them as a setup. It's only our attraction to wealth that makes us susceptible to the pain of poverty. It's the attraction to a full stomach that sets you up for the pain of hunger. It's the need for companionship or romance or acceptance that makes you feel the pain of loneliness and separation and isolation. It's your attachment to happiness that makes you sad. In fact, it's the very pursuit of happiness that leads to sadness. We'll come back to that. If the weather person says it's going to be 72 and sunny, and you wake up to 55 and cloudy, you might be sad. However, if the weather person says it's going to be 42 and rainy, and you wake up to 55 and cloudy, you might be happy. Well, why is that? Well, it's because your happiness or sadness have nothing to do with the weather. The good or the bad flow through the same pipes. And so, when you attach to the pipeline, you get whatever it is that the pipeline processes. And so, when a person says, "You're making me angry, you're making me sad," you don't say that, do you? Because when a person says that, they're wrong. They're either lying or they don't understand a very simple truth about what the old yogis knew about the Raga Dveshas. You cannot appreciate or even understand the comfort of being safe and warm and dry until you understand the pain of being endangered and cold and wet. You don't know the comfort of shelter until you've experienced fear, the fear and agony that go with exposure. You don't truly understand what a full stomach is, or at least what the value of it is, until you've gone days, weeks, perhaps a week or so, without eating. That's when you start to understand it. This is how the very pursuit of pleasure sets you up for pain. And yet we all pursue comfort and pleasure, don't we? It's an addiction. It's a trap. It's a Rubik's Cube, a hamster wheel. It's all of these things. So how do we get clean? Solve the puzzle. Get off of that wheel. And for that matter, what does this have to do with the energy pipelines we're talking about? What does it have to do with your health, your growth, your happiness, your self-improvement, and realizing your full potential? Let's come back to those old yogis. Those old yogis were very familiar with the Raga Dveshas. And thousands of years before Einstein put the science to it, they understood the sameness of mass and energy, of body, mind, spirit, emotion, intellect, ego, and so on. They understood energy contact. And so yesterday's mysticism is today's grade school science. And today's mysticism will be tomorrow's grade school science. The term yoga, by the way, let's revisit that. It does not mean an exercise class with dim lights and incense and spooky music. It is a very enlightened spiritual philosophy. It's a lifetime spiritual pursuit. And those venerable yogis who preach the meaninglessness of the physical plane, and indeed the physical body, invented the exercise part, precisely because they knew there was no difference. And because they knew in order to realize true spirituality, non-physical energy had to flow freely through the physical body. And because they knew you couldn't meditate if your back hurts. In fact, wise mystics from every culture, they have known these things from time immemorial. Chinese mystics, Celtic mystics, African mystics, Native American mystics, you name it. If you go back and look, they were all seeing and all saying pretty much the exact same thing. All right, so that's plenty about energy. What about the body? Let's come back and take a look at Slim here. Here's my buddy Slim. Now Slim, he's a vertical creature. He's about 5'7" tall, but he's only a foot or so around. We want to take a look at Slim's back here. Even though he's basically a vertical creature, he has horizontal structures as well. As a matter of fact, the horizontal structures have to be very strong. This pelvis here is probably the strongest bone in Slim's body. And it has to be strong to support all the vertical stuff. Okay, so our basic vertical structures are our legs and our spine. Remember, our spine includes our neck. Our basic horizontal structures are our feet and our pelvis and our shoulders. But of these, our main structures are our pelvis and our spine. Let's look at a slide. We'll take another look at our pelvis and our slide. There they are. Here's a close-up look of them, detached from Slim. We already know that energy falls up from our hips. So that pelvis there that you see is a model of a source of something. It is the core of something. And over there on the other side, there's a back and a side view of a spine. If energy falls up our spine, then that spine must be the model of a pipeline, a conduit of sorts. It even looks like a pipe, doesn't it? Something through which a current can flow. All right, let's come back up here. Now, to understand those energy pipelines, we have to understand the Ragadveshas. And to understand the Ragadveshas, we have to understand the mind, the way the mind works and how it processes these flows. We've looked at the mind on energy contact, and we don't have time to return to our review of it today. That's a subject for a number of shows on its own, and believe me, we'll get to them. But for now, we just want to take a second just to look at what the mind has to do with the pipelines and with the Ragadveshas. Now keep in mind, we also have to understand what all this has to do with the pelvis and the spine. So we're getting a full plate here, a lot of open subjects. We've got a lot of things on the table. We've got the mind, and we've got the spine and the pelvis, and we've got pleasure and pain, prana and chi, and we've got Ragadveshas. Stay with me. We're getting to the point here, we're about to put it all together. All right, the mind. When the mind separates from the stomach hurts. When the mind separates from the back hurts. When the mind separates from the emotions, you become angry or sad or hysterical or crazy or whatever it is you become. That's when you say and do the things that you end up regretting later. When the mind separates from the intellect, you get a little hazy, a little cloudy. You lose focus. You get a little thick. When the mind separates from the spirit, you lose your way. The problem comes from separation and compression, from the pulling apart of things that would rather be together, and from the pressing together of things that would rather be apart. Pleasure comes from everything in its proper state of union. The word yoga, by the way, means union. All right, so I'm going to get my magnets out here. Remember these guys? We're looking at a little bit about attractions. Magnetic fields and millions of other fields are flowing right through you and me right now. Electromagnetic waves, cell phone signals, Wi-Fi, all that wireless modem stuff, all sorts of magnetic and power transformer waves, microwaves, they're all going through you and me right now. There's a point where these two magnets don't pull each other, but those magnets, they're going through me right now. All the forces in the universe, all of them, they're attracting and repelling things just like these magnets are right now. All right, so I mentioned proper state of union. That's going to bring us up to another slide. Things get funky if they pull too far apart or if they get too close together. What's up with that? On your screen now, you see some examples of perfect spacing. On one side of your screen, you see the picture of an atom, infinitesimally small. And on the other side is the solar system. It's gargantuan, it's huge. They all look just alike. They're scale models of each other. Those little dots on the circles, not the big dot in the middle, but the little ones on the circles there, they represent electrons on one side and planets on the other. And they know just where they belong. They're not too far apart. They're not too close together. And they stay there. Those circles, by the way, those concentric circles, they don't exist. Something knows how to keep the little dots from drifting away or from collapsing in. If either of those two things occurred, bad things would happen. In the solar system case, for example, somehow the Earth knows how to neither collapse into the Sun or bump into Venus on one side, and it knows how not to drift off into Mars on the other side. And the same energy that keeps the Earth from bumping into Mars is the same energy that runs you and I. All right. Let's come back here. The other thing you notice from those pictures is there was no power cords. There's no batteries, but they've been running for quite a long time, huh? Do you ever stop to think about that? Atoms, by the way, are identical. You and I are made up of identical atoms. Each of us has about 7,000 trillion in us. So you start multiplying that by billions of people and you see there's plenty of atoms to go around. In fact, a carbon atom in you is exactly the same as a carbon atom in a puddle of gasoline, in a daisy or a tulip, in a diamond or a lump of coal. You get the idea. And yet we all look, act, think, and feel very differently, don't we? Those magnets I have a flow. Right now, we won't get too technical with that, but just keep in mind trillions and trillions of atoms, trillions and trillions of energy fields, trillions and trillions of energy flows, all identical. Energy flows are not physical, but we manifest them, we wear them on our physical bodies. Let's bring up another slide and we're going to see some old friends of ours. See these guys here? They're all manifesting and metabolizing their ability to move energy through the pipelines or not. Identical external forces all being metabolized through identical sets of internal forces, all composed of identical atoms, processing identical flows, all being wrought and brought about differently. They all look different, act different, think different, and feel different, don't they? Let's come back here. All of us do. We all look, act, think, and feel different from each other, and yet we're all identical. 1 billion different people will look, act, think, and feel 1 billion different ways. We've got time to get one more slide up. Take a little leap here. And let's look at a quotation from one of my heroes, Carl Jung. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This latter procedure, however, is disagreeable, and therefore it is not popular. We have all learned that in our unaware state, we are just trying to get by. We're just trying to get to zero. We're not trying to get better. We're trying to replace something that's lost, to make something go away, and until we make our pain go away, we can't think of very much else. And to the extent that we do that, let's come back up here. And to the extent that we do that, we will resist flow. And when we resist flow, we will suffer. We will experience pain. And we'll get so preoccupied with making the pain go away that we'll forget that the answer is in our internal energy flows. And so we'll look outside of us for things to make us happy. We'll look for things to set us free. Magic genies, saviors, bands of angels, figures of light, all of which are fine. They're all great things. But none of them are going to do our work for us. As we become aware, we start to see things as they really are. Awareness is the only pathway out. It's the way off the hamster wheel. It's our secret to transcending. When we begin to manage and promote the flow of energy through our physical self, we'll become very healthy. And we'll become very good. We'll become good, kind, better people. And we'll feel good too, all of the time. It's neither exclusively a physical thing, nor is it exclusively an energetically thing, because we are exclusively neither of those. We are the embodiment of all of them. And so health, growth, and self-improvement happen when we make energy contact the physical self. Thanks, that's all the time we have today. We'll get into it more next time. Until then, I wish you peace and positive energy and a healthy life in energy contact.